We're ready to go. Okay. Do we have people online?
4 online right now.
Is Danielle? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Say hi.
Okay. On McGee, Bina. Welcome back for storytelling night. Aadizookaan. Nibagi, sis. Okay. Tonight, story is the story of Opichi. Opichi, right here. When I tell you his English name, you'll become very familiar with him. This is the name for the robin. Okay, we see him every spring. He's one of the little Benetsi, the little birds that show up every spring, and we know it's springtime when the robins come. Everybody's happy to see him. Okay. Many of our birds and stuff have different plumage, different characteristics and stuff. So in the Chippewa Ojibwe tradition, a lot of them have a story behind them, and there's a reason they have their plumage. And so this story of Opichi is how Opichi came to be. Okay, you know, the spring robin. Okay. Right. Long time ago in this village, there was this family right here, this man, woman, boy, and they were relatively happy. They were relatively happy when the boy was young. They were happy. And a loving family. Everybody seemed to be happy. But as the boy got older, his father, who was a renowned warrior and hunter, means he was known for his hunting skills and his being a brave man in defense of his people, had gone on the warpath many times and led war parties and that and this. And so people really respected him and looked up to him. And this man, he kind of, he took all that bravado. He kind of liked that attention. You know, humbleness was not one of his best characteristics. He wasn't that humble. You know, he was one of these people like to push out his chest. And so as the boy got older, he started making him things, which was custom at that time, the tradition. So the father would make him a bow and arrow set and, you know, different things that he might need, you know, as a man, you know, gave him a ball, had the mother make him a ball so he could kick it around to become nimble on his feet and become coordinated that way, kind of like when you do soccer, that kind of thing. And so he told the boy would listen to his father at night, retell his stories of bravery and the hunt, and how he, you know, he used a lot of those skills for the benefit of his people. So, you know, if there was widows in the camp, if there was old people in the village, and they didn't have anybody to hunt and help feed themselves, he would always make sure that he would provide for them. Because he was such a good hunter, he more than provided for his family. So, and his wife was a very quiet, humble woman, and she made sure that their home was just very comfortable and that the fire was always lit and there was food on in case visitors came, and they always had something to eat and share with people that came. Well, one day, news had come that one day, that's joining by, instead of the round circle, these sharp points represent there was something about that day that was important. News had came that the people were moving to the summer village. And so the summer village was a time of great excitement. And you had all these small clans. Remember we talked about clans? They came out of their hunting areas, their regions, and they came together into one large camp. And so it was an exciting time because it was the time also not just to see old friends, but mothers and grandmothers started planning their daughters and their sons' wedding, a time for their daughters and sons to meet young women and guys. And of course, they couldn't intermarry in their own clans. It was forbidden. It was like marrying your cousin or something, you know. So, or brother and sister, that was forbidden. But also it was a time when the young boys and sometimes young girls who were more masculine, there was a series of games. There was running, there was foot races, there was canoe races, there was bow and arrow races, there was wrestling contests. What else? Oh, ball games. There was ball games too, a form of soccer like lacrosse. So these were all contests that the boys and some of the young girls would participate in order to win prizes. And so after about a week of being there, it was declared that on this day, these games would start. So the family went there. Okay, let's move the slide over here. Over here, they went to the big camp. And the man and his family wanted their son to take part in this. Now, this particular father, he had won these games quite a few times when he was young. And so he was anxious to renew old friendships and be there and, you know, to speak about his son. And yeah, it's going to lead the family. It's going to keep it in the family, you know. And so it was on the trail. He had hoped that his son would accomplish the deed of recognition, getting the first feather. Okay. And so now let me tell you a little bit about this boy. Even though in stature he was somewhat tall and muscular and stuff, but he was a very quiet boy. And he wasn't very aggressive and very motivated. He was kind of more laid back, you know. And although he loved his dad and respected him and he'd do anything for his dad, you know, he lacked the confidence that his dad had. Lacked the confidence in his own ability. And it just, you know, he wasn't sure if he could match up to his dad, his ability. And so the day came and they had a certain amount of events. And these young men here, I don't know if we can see it. Here was all the contests like the racing, the wrestling, the bow shooting, the canoe racing, and I'm not sure what that is. We're gonna have to look on it. But the games lasted 4 days. 4 days. Okay. Well, in the wrestling, because of it was close contact and demanded not just strength but skill, the boy didn't do very good. Boy didn't do very good. In fact, he was close to the bottom group, you know. And the father, he was just sitting there the whole time, kind of egging his son, come on, do this, do that. And the boy, he tried his best, but he just wasn't aggressive enough. And he didn't win that championship. He didn't even get to the championship. In fact, he was kind of lost quite a few matches and it just didn't work out. And father, he just was kind of, so when he came and sat by him, father didn't say nothing to him, didn't put his arm around him. And you did your best job as you could. Father kind of looked at him, kind of sullen, didn't say nothing. The other series are two competitions. He didn't do very good. Over the next 4 days, the champion at each event was named. Honors were given. People clapped. People gave gifts. The young boy was paraded around, It was really, so, and the girls all the time, they were kind of sitting in the back, doing this and trying to, kind of thinking, about love, things like that. Might be a good husband. I should talk to my mom, my grandparents about him. Maybe they'll go visit his parents. But anyway, at the end of those 4 days, here the boy, he came back into the lodge, here the father. He said, I want to talk to my son alone, the mother. The boy or the man said to the mothers, and the mother said, no. She said, I'm going to sit in here. And so for a long time, the boy sat there and he had his head down. He knew his dad was upset with him. And the father, he wanted to be angry at his son, but he didn't, he knew that wouldn't do any good. Well, he said, I expected better. I expected better, he said. You're my son, he said. I expected you to do better. The boy didn't say nothing. Well, I tried, Dad. I tried hardest I could, the best I could. He said, he said, I'm not you. I'm not you. He said, I'm just me. He said, well, there's got to be a part of you that's from me. He said, in you. He said, I expected better. He said, in fact, he said, on all areas of these competitions, you were low. He said, how are you going to survive in life if you don't have motivation, if you're not aggressive, if you don't get out there and push yourself? And the boy says, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And the mother said, that's enough. She told the father, that's enough. You had your say with them. Go. She said, go for a walk. She told her son. And here, as he left the lodge here, they were kind of arguing, having words, not really arguing, but just having words. So the boy, he went off into the woods and he sat down. And here he is, I believe. Yeah, here they are. Here he sat down by this big tree. And here he just sat there next to this tree, and it was just quiet. He could hear the people back in the village laughing and busy and this and that. But he didn't pay attention. Instead, he just looked at the sky, and there was these birds up there flying around, and he was just thinking, oh, I wish my life was free like this. I wish I could just float above the trees and just fly, and there was nothing to keep me from going this way or going this way. I could go where I wanted to go. I could eat and I could sleep. I could do what I wanted. I had this freedom. And he just sat there in this thought. Well, the next day, they were supposed to stay longer. But because the father was upset, he came out. He said, son, we're leaving. We're leaving. So they decided they were going to leave the camp. He was embarrassed. The truth was the father was embarrassed by his son. And a lot of his friends, they made that point that he would bring that up, that, oh, your son didn't do very good. We thought he would win the contest, being he's your son, you know, we were sure. Well, the father said, I don't know. He said, I don't know if he's my son. You know, he was just embarrassed. He would think and say harmful things. And so somehow the boy heard some of that stuff and he was disappointed. So they left the village, went back, moved away a little ways. And so days passed and the father didn't say much to the son. He would take up his time hunting, doing things. And the mother, she would keep herself busy, started planting a garden, tend to her garden and stuff like that. And, you know, sometimes go fishing. And here one day at supper, the father remembered talking to this old man, how some of these men, they didn't do well as hunters and they didn't do well as warriors, but there was another path that they could take. And that was the way of Nam the Ben, they call it, the way of how the water runs, makes its own course. And of course, that leads to taking boys out and fasting. I don't know if you ever heard that, where people fast. So for boys about this age, they would take them out and fast. And this age, they would take them out just young. And so this is what the father did. Next morning, just before they were going to have breakfast here, the father reached into the part of the fire and brushed out some of the coals. And he waited till they cooled down, and then he crushed them in his hand. And the mother saw that and she says, what are you doing? And he crushed them like that in his hands, and he went over to his son and he just started smearing all that black stuff over the boy's face. And so this boy, that was a sign that he was going to do something spiritual, but also that his life would be in jeopardy. So the boy, after he ate his last lunch, his last drink, and breakfast, and they left. Mother couldn't say much. And so they left. Where is the leaving? Are you still with? Oh, here they are, right here. Yeah. Left. And the boy waved. The father headed down a less worn trail. After a couple days of walking on this trail, they came to a little opening, a little hill, and there was a single tree growing on this hill. And this is where we're going to stop, he said. And so they stopped, and the father had brought his pipe, and he filled it, he held it up, and he prayed, talked about his son, asking the spirits to pity his boy, you know, bring him something that would benefit his life, make him strong, and to be a good man. And then afterwards, he told his son, he said, you got to stay here. He said, you can't leave this area. He said, I'll be back in 4 to 5 days. He said, I can't leave you no food, no water. It's going to be hard for you. You're going to suffer, he said, but I'll be back for you. He said, things might come, show themselves to you. It could be an animal, it could be a person, something, but it might change too in front of you, turn itself into something else. So the boy didn't say anything, and the father left, and he just listened to his father leaving. Pretty soon it was just quiet. Harry looked up around, just nothing but trees, and hear the wind blowing through the trees. He looked up, he heard the chirping of birds, and he just kind of moved back against the trees, just watching that, the birds flying like that. I thought, this isn't too bad, he said. My dad's gone, he said. No pressure. He said, it's not so bad, he said. He thought, I can make it. So after 4 days, he stayed out there 4 days and 4 nights, all by himself. And it wasn't as like today, you know, people lived out in the country, they lived outside, they lived very close to nature, not like today, we live in houses and stuff. And when we do sleep outside, sometimes we hear a strange noise and like, oh, what's that? What's that? You know, kind of get scared, but you know, people weren't, they were familiar with the sounds of nature. Anyway, so here on the 5th day here, soon he heard his dad come walking down the path. Harry brought him a little bundle here. He had a little kind of container of water. Here the boy started drinking it fast and hard. He said, no, slow down. He said, slow down. You can just take little sips. He said, your stomach is shrunk up. And he gave him a little bit of food, and they visit for a while. And the boy looked all right, but he looked somewhat a little bit malnourished, thirsty. And so halfway back to his home, they stopped that night, and he talked about, did anything appear to you? Did anything happen to you? He says, no, Father. He said, I was just by myself. He said, it wasn't so bad. He said, you should have seen all these beautiful birds up there. He said, they just visit with me every day. He said, like they knew I was here and why I was here. And the father didn't really listen to that. He said, well, did anybody visit you? Did anything visit you or talk to you? And he said, oh, Father. So they got back to the village, and mother had made up nice big meal, and real nice meal, and different kinds of neebish teas. And the boy ate, and pretty soon he fell asleep, and father told her, he's going to have to go out again. He's going to have to go out again till he's successful. And that's the way it was sometimes. So they waited about a week till the boy, maybe 2 weeks, waited till the boy gathered his strength. Then the father took him out there this time. And so he took him out, same place, left him, same place, same instructions, prayed with his pipe. He left his son out there, his young son, all alone out there in the woods. And yeah. I think we went too far. Maybe. Yeah, here we go. Right here. This one. Okay. So this happened for quite a while, back and forth, the boy. So all summer, the father would take the son every 1 or 2 weeks back to the same, and they fast. And finally the mother told the father, said, I think this is too much, she said. She started speaking up. She said, you know, once or twice is enough, but she said, maybe he's just not ready for this either. He said, why the rush? Why the push? Why is it so important to you? He's talking to her husband. Why is it so important to you that something happens right now? Give him some time. You know, maybe he's not like you. And so the mother really started speaking up to the husband, and of course he didn't like that, you know. But it was her right, because that was her child too. That's what she told him. And so every time they would go out, he'd stay out there longer. Not 4 days. Next time was 5, 6 days. Next time was 7, 8 days. And so it became longer and longer, the times, you know. And the father said less to the boy. He would just take him there and, you know, take his tobacco and put it on the ground. He wouldn't pray anymore. And so the boy knew what was going on. He felt the rejection from his father, and he wanted something to happen so he could please his father, but, you know, he didn't know what to do. And one day he was sitting there, and the birds had all gathered in the tree, and they were talking to him, chirping and talking, and he kind of understood. He kind of understood, he said, and he started talking to the birds, and he says, I don't know if he'll ever love me, he said, because of the way I am or how I am. He says, I don't think I could ever be like him. I don't know why I am the way I am. I wish I was like more my father, but I don't think I'd want to be like that kind of person. And so he was examining his own thinking and views of stuff. And he says, what I really want is to be like you. And he was telling these birds. And he stood up. He said, I want to be like you. And here, all of a sudden, there was this wind that came down, and these birds were chirping like that. And all of a sudden, he felt himself lifting up into the sky. And he said, oh my gosh, what's going on? And he was actually flying, and the power of these birds had transformed him into another bird. Yeah, and he was just flying around with them, and he was just laughing and chirping and laughing and chirping, and he actually became a bird himself because of his desire to be like them. And they had adopted him. They had seen his suffering. And they said, enough is enough. We were going to help this little boy. We're going to help him. And so he was lifted up into the sky. Well, the days passed. The days passed, and he just was having so much fun. Excuse me. And here his father came walking down the trail and looking for his son. Been out there a long time. A lot of times he'd been out there too. And he looked for his son, and he called to him and called to him, and nobody would call back. But this bird and these other birds were chirping. And he looked at him, and he said, be quiet, he said. I want to hear if my son's out there. And so he called and called, and eventually dark came, night came, and he sat out there all night, and he started thinking about his son, how he treated him, how he talked to him, how he behaved towards him, the things he had said. And he realized, I went too far. I went too far. I hurt my son. I broke his heart. I hurt him. And he said, he's run away. And I don't blame him, And he was talking like this, and all the time, this bird, you could hear him chirping, chirping, chirping. And this boy who became the bird, the robin, Opichi, he was trying to get his father's attention. But he had changed, he had transformed. he crossed over into a different kind of a being. And he couldn't get his father's attention. He didn't realize that his son already had been gifted, and it was right there in front of him. So the next day he woke up, he had been laying there all night, wiped his eyes. In his dream, he was crying. He's crying for his son. And he looked around, and he just got up slowly and went down the path. And of course, mother was there, and she had fixed her customary meal, his nice meal, the food that her son liked to eat. And right away, she noticed that her son wasn't there. And where is he? Why didn't you come back with him? And he said he wasn't there. What do you mean he wasn't there? Did you go look? She said. He wasn't there, he said. He wasn't there. He's not there. He's left. Mother put her head down, walked back into the lodge. And she looked at his soup. In a chair, she spilt it into the fire. She started crying for her son. And they didn't talk for quite a few days. But in 2 or 3 days, the father went back. And he went back. In time, the mother passed away. She passed away, her spirit here. Passed away from grief, but also anger towards the father for how they only had one child and how that went, their relationship after that. It just stopped. She never talked to him again. She never cooked for him. She never spent very much time with him, although they lived under the same roof. You know, the relationship pretty much had died with the loss of their son. And the father returned there. And when the mother passed away, every so often, every month, every moon, the father would go down that trail to that place, and there would always be this bird. And by this time he was an old man and had to use a stick to walk because he was feeble, losing his balance. And he would sleep there. And well, one time he had a dream. And he heard his son calling out to him, "Father, it's me. Father, it's me. Look up, Father, it's me. I've always been here. I've never left you. I've never gone any place." And here he's seen his son up there. He was flying as a bird, as this robin. And here, when he woke up, here this robin was there perched right above him, making his sounds. And the father realized that he had always been there. He had never left, that he had actually succeeded in becoming somebody or something, fulfilling his father's wish, but not exactly what his father wanted him to be. He had fulfilled his own path, what he wanted himself in life. So, there's a father. So we'll move down more. We're almost to the end here. So the father came back after he acknowledged and seen his son as Opichi. The father left and Opichi followed him. And all the people started talking about him, about this old man. And he had come back from the woods with this strange looking red-bellied bird. And that people never seen a bird like that. And so they would sometime gather around and they'd look, gawk. And he would sit in front of his lodge a lot of times talking to this bird like that. And so eventually he passed on, this old man, of grief and sorrow, because he realized that he had lived a life of vanity, praising himself, looking at other people to kind of look up to him for what he had done. That there was killing so many deer and moose and elk had become his way of looking up to himself, or fighting as a warrior and glorifying in the killing, not in the defense of his people. That's something that had to be done. But he had looked at life all wrong, and that the real important things of life was about love, about relationship. It was about companionship, about friendship. It was about spending time, good time with family and friends. And this guy's life, he had missed all that. And it took his son in his dying year to realize that real life can't be achieved unless there's love is the main important part of it, that relationship. So what made life worth living, really. Yeah. Sometimes that sacrifice has to be made before we can really open our eyes, our minds, and see what the truth is. So, yeah. That's it. So what'd you think about the story, Grace? You always have a good opinion. Yes, yes, Grace. That's why I call it. You can always have. We have to let people follow their own path, right? Sometimes we want to push our children to. I sometimes question some in relationships. Sometimes people will have children just so that they can have a mini me, so to speak, so they can have their children can relive the lives that they had, that they thought were important, to be popular or to be, successful in ways. But, children are born with their own paths. We have to let them live that up. Well said, Grace. Yeah. So how do we accomplish that? How do we accomplish that? Yeah, allow our children to lead their own path. How do we guide them to their own path? How do we do that?
You just do. My kids are opposites, total opposites. And with the second one, like my oldest son, he was perfect. He never had his own anything nice.
Hmm.
He never did. And the other one was total opposite, but it just, you just gotta learn to just let go, and you just gotta, they kind of guide you, and you just, you just follow behind and just try and keep them, safe, and, just follow, it's kind of weird because, I used to call him a heathen, but, so me and him are the closest, so you just let them be who they're gonna be and just encourage it. No matter what it is.
Things are so different from when I was a kid, and even before the generations before me, it's a dangerous world out there. A lot of kids are Speaking about my granddaughter, when we were raising her, I was her best friend. I was her best friend. And then as she got into her early pre-teens, she started having her own group in middle school and friends. And all of a sudden I was kind of pushed to the side. And that was really hard for me because I wasn't invited no more. And I tried to invite myself. She said, no, Grandpa, I don't want you. It's embarrassing. Oh my gosh, I thought, so I'm an embarrassment, that kind of thing. And so, but, I was just always hoping that she could make good choices, the right choices, because, all of that. So I don't know. It must be really hard. You have children. I think it's the greatest challenge a couple has. It's not so much making money. It doesn't matter if you're poor, as long as there's love, and devotion to each other and the relationship. But being there for kids, trying to instill that love, and it's really hard. And to praise them.
A lot of praise. Oh.
Do you guys have children?
I have 2 boys.
2 boys? Okay.
Polar opposites.
They're polar opposites. How old are they?
Both 7.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's a real difficult age, 15. Oh yeah. You must have children? They're all grown up? Oh wow. Yeah. Yeah, we had 5 children. They're all grown up. They're in their 40s. So, yeah.
It's that age where they think they're the parents and you're the child. I don't know when that happens. That's my kids are 35 and 40. And all of a sudden, it's not mom anymore, they call me instead of like.
Mm. Well, grandparents still have a valuable component in the family life. I think it's to have good relationship with the grandparents, not take them for granted. I mean, back home, again, I don't know a family or people my age that aren't raising grandchildren. I don't know any that aren't. Yeah. It seems like everybody has are being stuck with grandchildren. And not that they don't like it. It's just that somehow the parents take themselves out of that. Or that having children is not out of love, it's out of something else. It's something that as a result of other things, not out of love or devotion or with the relationship. So it's really hard on the grandparents sometimes because what I have found out, we still have a 14-year-old boy who lives in our home, but he's our grandson, but there's things I can't do, he wants to do. Like, but I have my oldest boy there. He can physically like play basketball with them and do things with them, but same with the girls. So that makes it hard.
I just do what I can with my friends. Yeah, I got 6 of them. And as I'm close to my one granddaughter, she's 7. Her and Gabriel are 7 and 8 Irish twins. And I've always been real close with them, but I always think, one day, just like you said, she's not gonna, want to stay there for a minute, cuddle with me. She's gonna figure out what boys are, and she's gonna be gone, so I need to take advantage of that while I have it, so
Right.
They totally,
Yeah. So basically, this story is about how not to parent children. It's but I've known people who are like this. They really can be hard on their children if they don't fulfill their own expectations. Every relationship has people come into it with some kind of expectation. A man and woman has these expectations of that their partner or their friend. And a lot of times, if they don't fulfill those expectations for some reason or another, the relationship starts to unfold. And so, and we do that to our own children sometimes. We have this idea that we need to set boundaries, borders, or expectations and have some kind of thing to move towards. And of course, a lot of that's good stuff. I mean, a lot of it's good, but sometimes the expectations are too high, or their time isn't right yet, or we just need to give a person time. I always viewed, when we started having children, I viewed them as gifts. And so I turned down things that I wanted in my own life, because I knew my children would take so much time and they needed me there. So I turned down opportunities and different things that I could have had that maybe in the long term would have helped the family group, but at that moment I couldn't abandon my kids. So just for my own, what I wanted. So, and it was really hard for me because she liked being a mother, I like being a father, but I didn't get that attention anymore. The men, seems like all we got is our ego. And if we're not getting equal treatment or equal attention from the woman, then it's kind of harmful to her. And it took me a while to understand and actually kind of change that about myself, because children need so much attention and care. And here's the guy, instead of having the same thinking, he's kind of thinking, hey, why is when's my turn? So it took me a while to I had to regroup. And and I think that's an area sometimes when that happens, that some guys, because of their egos, that they will leave a relationship. They're not getting that attention. It takes more of a man to stay in a relationship and foster the love, support for the family unit than just to leave, because that can just, I think in the end, the man can realize his mistakes, but a lot of times it's too late, can't come back, so we see that a lot back home amongst our young people. When the girls, the young women get pregnant and they have the children, then all of a sudden they're not getting that attention and they leave the relationship. But sometimes the women will leave, the girls will leave their kids with the grandmother and run after the man. Well, that's not helpful to the children either. So So that's a dynamic we're seeing in our community. So, and I'm sure it's probably happens here in Great Falls. So, oh,
That's when my kids, the ones that were by me, I always, have to do date night, no matter if they have money or if I give them money or if they just go to the park or just whatever they do. Date night, I think no matter what age is just, so, because they got all the babies you can play with. So it's like, I don't know. Should have to, so they
yeah.
gotta do what's best for them. I just figure whatever I do to make the parents' life easier, makes it easier on the babies. So
It does. Yeah. Well, does anybody? This is how our conversations usually go with the stories that because they're teaching scrolls, they're teaching that talks about even life back then. One of the things I really learned from these scrolls when I was younger and started really looking at the behavior of the individuals in these stories that, they could be 5, 6, 7,000 years old, these stories, but the behavior of humans hasn't really changed. We're still dealing with the same kind of drama and relationship problems or, individual problems, just a lot of stuff. We haven't changed a lot. The environment has changed considerably, but, we as humans, we haven't evolved too much. We're still filled with drama, still trying to survive, get by. So, and our children, they suffer along the way sometimes as we bring them along. Yeah. Okay, is there any questions? Anybody online that have any questions? Travis?
Tracy Harris says, thank you, wonderful story, I'm with the top and left.
Yeah. Okay. Well, make which. So tomorrow night we have a really, we start a two-part series called the Medeawin. And that's an old Chippewa word that has to refer to a sound, but it's a really beautiful sound that emits from a water drum. And it is the most ancient of all societies of our people. It talks a lot how we learn and we look at life, and it's the society itself is very constructive. It builds upon knowledge, and it's something that the Great Lakes people still have, and it's very strong. We've had that at Turtle Mountain, but it's not as strong as it could be because, I don't know, we transitioned out of the Great Lakes area. And then of course, the Little Shell, there's only remnants of people who still have that. I don't know if they historically they had any of these lodges here at in this area, but well, there's so much to talk about. And I can talk about it because I belong to the lodge itself. I'm a member of that lodge. And I've gone up to the master level. It took quite a few years, but we can talk about it. A long time ago, it was more secretive, the knowledge and all the information in it, because there, the destruction. Europeans wanted, modern society wanted to destroy it, and like everything else of our culture. But it survived, and it's more open. But some of the knowledge is still secret on how to do things. So it's going to be a very interesting teaching about it. And Travis found some really wonderful old pictures. I was really happy. And that's part of the PowerPoint tomorrow. So, yeah. everybody should know about. If you're an Anishinaabe, you should know about the Madeo and it's something, and it was given supernaturally, but to us by mighty spirits. And we'll talk about that, how that happened and how old it is. So we'll have that tomorrow night. So, okay, I want to thank everyone for coming. There's some refreshments, visit. Okay. All right.